let's welcome Ash to the Sober Butterfly. Hi, Ash. Welcome. Thank you
Hi.
for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to have you. And Ash, people can detect a little accent there. Can you just share with people at home where you're from
Yeah,
or where you're based?
yeah, I'm from Australia. I'm based on the Sunshine Coast. So it is up north, very sunny and beautiful here if you've ever been.
I see it in your content
Mhm.
on Instagram. I'm just like, wherever you are is paradise. It looks like paradise.
Yeah.
I'm living vicariously through you in many ways. If you're not watching this from home, Jazz is, I'm sorry, I have to tell people, you are knockout gorgeous, right?
Thank you.
And I don't mean to objectify you or embarrass you. I'm so sorry, but
No
I have to
fun.
say, you are just stunning. And that was the first thing I said, guys, when she joined the call. I was just like, "Oh, wow." Like, I knew from online, but, like, it's even more stunning on
Uh,
this call, guys. You cannot imagine. Okay, I'm gonna stop gushing. Let's stick to the script here. I would love to learn from you, Ash. Tell us about your journey growing up. Were you always really connected to wellness and health, or was that something that came with time?
Yeah, I really got into wellness later on in life, I would say. Growing up, I probably had a very similar teenage girl experience that a lot of us had where quite young, I was very body conscious. I was always trying to diet. And that really stuck with me through my 20s. But I was in a really bad cycle. I would restrict food and then I would end up binging. And this went on for, 15 years of my life, probably since the age of 14. It was something I was always really conscious of and just felt like I was just in this constant battle. I started to really get into exercise in my early 20s, and I just found that a really good outlet. It's something that I'd never really done growing up. And so it became a real passion for me. And then really got into wellness in my late 20s. I went through the whole, you're in your 20s, you're single, you're going out and drinking all the time, not taking care of yourself. And then I'd always sort of had, I guess, long-term boyfriends in my 20s as well. And it wasn't until I went through a period of being single where I realized what I actually enjoyed and what I wanted to do. And I really started to focus on my diet and wellness. Mostly, I was interested in it so much because I wanted to, I guess, cure the, you would call it disordered eating that I had been through
Right.
for so long in my life. And so I was reading all of the books. I was, listening to all the self help, doing all of the things. And that's where it really started. And it's just grown from there.
Thank you for sharing that, and I relate very much to parts of your story that you shared. Typically, the disordered eating, I also will throw in I had body dysmorphia. I didn't feel very connected to my body, and no matter what, my weight would, like, yo-yo, whether I was, like, on the thinner end because I was so obsessed with the number, the scale, presentation. I didn't care to the extent that I put my body in these really unhealthy positions just to, like, chase this number or this
Yes.
yeah, this size, and ultimately what ended up happening is I still couldn't connect the idea that I was healthy because I wasn't healthy, like, I didn't see myself as beautiful even though I was, like, achieving whatever ideal
Yeah.
presentation I was striving for. So that, like, psychological piece,
Mm.
I think, is hard to rewire or
Right.
recircuit. And so I loved hearing from you that you did the work, you were reading literature and you were trying to kind of like excavate like what is going on. So from your
Yeah.
experiences, I guess like my question for you is like how do people start to break that cycle and
Mhm.
understand how important it is to really prioritize their health over maybe just a physical
Yes.
a
Yeah.
physical size or like whatever that arbitrary number is for them?
Well, I think about times in my life where I have felt the most confident, and it's never been when I've had the lowest number on the scale. Even though in your
Mm,
mind you think it is at the time, it's actually the times where I've stuck to the habits that I wanted to stick to, or it's never been the time where anyone would say I looked the best, but I felt the best. And it's funny that
mm,
we don't often think about that. We think, oh, when I look a certain way or when I'm a certain size, then I'll be happy. But you get to that point
right.
and it's not the case at all. And the true
No.
happiness comes from looking after yourself from within And when you start to focus on what makes you feel good rather than what makes you look good, I feel like the physical transformation just naturally happens. And you get that glow about
Right.
you. And instead of just focusing on calories in, calories out, or, what a lot of people say, it's okay, I'm going to focus on eating foods that nourish my body, that make me feel good, so that I do have
Mhm.
energy to do the things I want to do. And I just feel like that natural glow, it just happens when you take care of yourself.
When you mentioned the most beautiful you felt or the healthiest you felt is not based off of external validation, other people telling you how
Mhm.
you feel, but, like, how you intrinsically felt
Mhm.
inside because you were taking care of yourself
Mhm.
and prioritizing your health. I would love that. I would be curious to learn from you. So, like,
Mhm.
in your later 20s, you sort of went through this process where you decided to prioritize yourself
Yes.
and you went on that journey
Mhm.
where you had time in your singledom to, like, figure that part out, and I love that you went through that process because in relationships, sometimes we can lose
Yeah.
ourselves or default to just, like, what the other partner
Yeah.
wants in that partnership. So it's nice to sometimes have that, like, space to figure yourself out.
Mhm.
At what point, though, in your journey did you realize that alcohol no longer served
Right.
or wasn't serving
Yeah.
what you were actually working towards?
Yeah. Well, my relationship with alcohol had changed quite a bit over the years. In my 20s, I never was a drinker during the week. It was only ever with friends on a weekend if we were going out. But again, when I did drink, I would go over the top and I'd always be the last one standing. When I got into my wellness journey, which was later in my 20s, it shifted where I wasn't going out and partying anymore or doing those things, but I would have wine with dinner, or, it felt much more grown up to me back then. I thought,
Right,
I'm being an adult now.
right,
I'm having a couple of wines with dinner and I'm taking care of myself. And back then I was thinking, I'm doing so much better now. But then very
right, yeah,
quickly, it started to progress into almost needing that wine to wind down. And I was
mhm,
a red wine drinker. That was like my drink of choice.
same,
And
yeah.
yes. And I could not.
It got sophisticated.
Yeah, it did. It felt sophisticated, going to wineries and all of that. I never saw it as a problem back then, but it wasn't until really after I had my son, which he's 3 now, so that was 3 years ago. During postpartum, I was
Mhm,
at home all the time, and then when I did start working, which was a year later, it was working from home for my husband's company, and there were
mhm,
some days where I would only speak to my husband, his business partner, and my son who couldn't talk at the time. And so it became a very
right,
isolating time for me.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think I started to rely on wine at the end of the day to switch off from the day. And it
right,
started to really creep into my daily life. And so it got to a
mhm,
point, again, I would never have more than, say, 2 wines a night, maybe 3 or 4 on a weekend. But it got to a point
right,
where I was almost looking for an excuse to have a bad day, to have an excuse to have a wine. If you know the
yeah,
feeling, like,
yeah,
something will
I
happen and then
do, I
you're just
do,
like, "Oh, well, I've had a bad day, so I may as well have one," and I was looking for those reasons.
right,
And it started to just get to a point where I knew it wasn't good for me, and I knew it was, ruining my sleep, and it also, for me, tied hand in hand with the eating because when I was drinking, my diet would go out the window. I would restrict the
yep,
day and then I would drink wine and I would end up binge eating, going to sleep feeling really full, really bad about myself, waking up the next morning thinking, why did I do that? And then just the whole cycle continuing. So it
yeah,
became quite a toxic relationship.
I've definitely been there, and then even restricting myself because of the shame I felt from overeating the night before,
Yes.
because I was a binge drinker and binge eater.
Mhm.
The 2 coincided,
Yeah.
and I also struggled with, like, drunkorexia, so, like,
Mhm.
not basically eating.
Yeah.
This is more so in my early 20s, but not eating so that I could basically feel the impact of alcohol even faster
Mhm.
and also feel skinny while I was getting drunker faster. That was, like, my 2 priorities at the
Mhm.
time. So, like, that cycle is really toxic, obviously, but, like, hard to break at times as well,
Mhm.
and it's really easy to, like, s slide.
Yes.
That's the insidious nature of any, like, toxic substance. At first, it feels like it's not an issue,
Mhm.
and then to your point we start to trick ourselves into believing that we are either deserving
Yeah.
of said substance or that, yeah, it's like, oh, it's not me, it's out of my
Mhm.
control. And then those are the lies that we tell ourselves and feed ourselves. And then really quick we can spiral from there.
Yeah.
So I love that you reached a point where you were like, I can recognize
Mhm.
this. And so I'm going to make another choice because so many people, myself included, did not make that choice. I went even deeper down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But many stories from many different days. I would like to circle back to you.
Yeah.
What sorts of transformation or what sorts of impact did you feel from making that choice to cut alcohol from your life? And was it
Mhm.
difficult to transition? Because I think the ritual can feel so
Mm.
ingrained into our daily schedule.
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, what was that process like for you?
Yeah, well, actually, after I had made the decision, okay, I'm done with drinking. It wasn't until maybe a couple of years later that I made the final decision. I was like, okay, enough's enough. I'm never drinking again. Before
Gotcha.
I would get to a point and I would say, okay, maybe I just need to do a few months or 6 months and just commit to 6 months. And every time
Hmm.
I would do that, I might manage to get through, say, 30 days or something like that. And I have an event. And then I realized very quickly that the habit comes back so fast. You think I'll just have one on an occasion. And then all of a sudden it's a Wednesday at
Yep.
5 p.m. and you're pouring wine again. And it's like, how did I get here so quickly?
So quickly.
So it was
Yeah.
actually not until it was this year at the start of the year, my husband and I and our son, we'd gone away for Easter and I was on a holiday and I'd just gotten to that point by the end of the holiday where I just felt so tired and exhausted. I could not wait to get home and get back into routine. We had been drinking every single night, hadn't exercised at all. I'd been binge eating the whole time. And I
Hmm.
thought, I would love to know what it feels like to go on a holiday and not have this feeling. Like, could I just holiday
Yeah.
an unlimited amount of time because I feel great? And what would that be like? And it was that weekend that
Mhm.
actually popped up on my phone that someone was doing like a call out for women in your 30s. Are you reflecting on your relationship with alcohol kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah. It was
Serendipitous.
a
It was a
yeah, and
sign
it was
from the universe.
yes, and it was a boot camp,
Yeah.
and it was being run by a guy called Jordan, who I still talk to now. He's a mentor of mine. And when I joined that boot camp, I remember at the start thinking, oh, maybe I don't need to be here. I'm not as far into drinking as some of the other women, but I realized very quickly that I was a lot further than I thought I was. And
Mm.
the community really helped because for the first time, I actually realized that no, this isn't something that I want to ever do again. And
Yeah.
that's how it all happened for me. And I still talk to Jordan weekly.
That's so beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would call that like a divine sign. Like it's almost like a divine
Yes.
intervention because I think with like what it sounds like to me is like more that gray area drinking
Mhm.
where it's like, are you sick enough to be sick enough?
Well,
Like a lot of
yes,
people, sometimes if it's not extreme, it just doesn't feel as urgent.
exactly.
So it's like, I'm so glad that you just somehow
Yeah.
found that
Mm.
in a period or space of time where you were sick of just doing it.
Yeah.
Like that's how I felt towards the end of my drinking as well. Like I didn't quite want to give it up,
Mhm.
but I was also kind of like, I don't feel good. This doesn't feel good. I'm now in my 30s.
Yes.
The bounce back is even harder.
Yeah.
And also, I just didn't even like the feeling. To your point, I take lots of trips and like
Mhm.
when I would go on these trips and go on these like benders or like binge drinking every day
Mhm.
or consecutive days, I would come back from my vacation feeling like I needed another vacation,
Mhm.
just like completely bent out of shape.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah, you
yeah,
need to
very
make from the
relatable.
vacation.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah,
I need to like take a break. I'm like, I need to sleep for a week.
exactly.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
So I love that. It sounds like everything happened at the perfect time
Yeah.
for you to like realize that like this is worth exploring at
Yes.
least.
Because I think a lot of the time we've seen, and especially in Australia, there's such a big drinking culture here. It's really considered
Yeah.
odd.
Aussies love to drink. I'm sorry to cut you
Love,
off. Every Aussie I've met loves to
yeah,
have a good
yeah,
time. Let's just say it, like,
it
I'll just say it
is.
that way.
That's so ingrained in our society here that, yeah,
Yeah.
you seem really odd if you don't drink. And so even with friends and family, because they would see how much I would drink, and I would often talk about I would show up to an event and I'm not drinking this time, and it'd sort of make me feel a little bit silly about it, like, oh, why? But I think if you're doing something that you feel like you don't want to do, yet you continue to do it despite wanting to stop, then it's an issue.
Right.
It doesn't matter how little or how much it is.
Because why would you just not stop,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
If it doesn't make sense for your life and you're
Mhm.
just blindly following the herd
Yeah.
and not questioning, like, why maybe I should just do this for myself because it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, alcohol specifically, I think amongst, like, all of the different drugs, because I do think alcohol is a drug.
Mhm.
I think it's the most insidious or dangerous because it is so normalized in society that you are ostracized or you are isolated if
Mhm.
you don't partake in this elixir of life, which is really draining the life
Mhm.
out of you. Like, so many people, I think, are just drinking mindlessly, or they feel the pressure to drink simply because they don't realize that they can make another choice for themselves.
Mhm.
And I think part of the representation is a factor in that. Like, if you don't know other people
Yes.
like you who are
Y
leading,
Mhm.
shepherding this different
Mhm.
route for people, then you don't even know. You don't even
Mhm.
realize, like, I didn't think before getting sober. Like, I knew I had an issue.
Mhm.
I knew something had to give. I thought the issue was just the quantity. I was like, I just need to drink
Yeah.
less.
Mhm.
I didn't even factor in that, like, you could just not drink at all.
Yes.
Like, because no one that I knew at that time
Yeah.
was doing that.
Yeah. And it's actually so much easier, I find, to just not drink at all rather than to truly
Yeah.
moderate. Like,
Moderate.
made the decision to stop, it felt
Yeah.
like it was just 1,000 times easier than the other times I had tried to adjust at events. It was like all of the decision fatigue was gone and I didn't have to think
Right.
about it anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I
Mhm.
also just think the way it works, whether you have a drinking problem or not,
Mhm.
once you take that first sip, it leads to the potential that you're going to drink more than
Yeah.
you anticipate because other people now are encouraging you to drink, or maybe now you feel socially anxious, or
Yes.
like once it hits your bloodstream, it's changing literally the course of the evening.
Mhm.
So I agree. Like, I just think it's easier
Yeah.
to abstain altogether.
Mhm.
Once you make a choice for yourself, like, go fully in.
Yeah.
So, in regards to, okay, you made that
Mhm.
decision this year. Talk to us about some of the benefits, if any, that you've experienced.
Yeah, well, I feel like my life has changed significantly in that time, in such a short time, it feels. But I mean, physically, I noticed the differences almost immediately. After about a month, my whole face had changed, my skin was glowing, I had energy again. It felt like it was like this fog had lifted where I had so much more mental space to focus on other things because not only when I stopped drinking, it was like I I also got rid of the food noise basically at the same time. So you can
Oh, wow.
imagine how much more time that had for me. Yeah, more free time I had in my life. There was a
Yeah.
lot, that went around getting rid of the food noise as well. It wasn't just the alcohol. At the same time, I really had to stop dieting for one, stop trying to restrict
Right.
calories, and reintroduce carbs back in. So a lot of things happened at the same time that really helped shape what happened after that physically and mentally. But yeah, I can't even explain how different my life is in so many ways.
I mean, you did. You told us, like, I that's beautiful. That is beautiful to hear. Was it easy for you once you made that decision to quit drinking to stick to it? Because some people
Mhm.
find it easy, others may
Yeah.
feel like it was a challenge for them. So, what was your experience aside, because you mentioned some of, like, the comments that you would receive
Yes. Yeah.
publicly or in the early maybe earlier days.
Mhm.
So any other, like, drawbacks or, like, any other difficulties for you in that process?
Mhm.
Because I think this is really helpful.
Yeah.
Like, I've been sober for 4 years,
Mhm.
and while I remember it, like, I feel like it's always really refreshing to hear what the journey is like as people are, like, walking through it, because my
Definitely.
first year of sobriety was, like, up and down.
Mhm.
Like, up and down. There were, like, amazing highs, and then there were days where I was like,
Yeah.
"This sucks."
Mhm.
But our drinking patterns were different.
Mhm.
Like, I was definitely more in the
Yeah,
trenches,
yeah.
but at the same time, like, it felt like I was mourning alcohol, like, shedding a
Mhm.
part of myself
Mhm.
to grow into something else
Yes. I
experience. Like,
agree. I found at the start, one of the main things I was a little worried about that was my husband and I, it almost became a way that we were connecting on the weekends or in the evenings was having a drink together. Also, I thought at the time. And so I was really worried that when I stopped drinking, we wouldn't be able to find that connection. But I started to really think
yeah,
about it, even in the times leading up to when I decided to finally quit. And I realized that even as we were sitting there connecting and having a drink, like we're both sitting on the couch on our phones anyway. And it actually
yeah.
wasn't the way that I played it back in my head at all. And
You romanticize
yeah,
it.
you romanticize it. And it's not until you actually take a step back and think, oh, hold on, like, how did I actually feel at that time? You
Right.
really do start to, even thinking about times where I'd go out to dinner with my friends, I would romanticize having that glass of wine and think, how could I go and socialize and not have one? But, I realized, I guess because I was so on and off with it, that the times that I would have a drink, I would be thinking about food the whole time, or I'd be thinking about, am I drinking too quickly? Is anyone going to notice? And it's like, I'm not
Yeah.
actually enjoying it at all.
Or present.
Yeah, or
Like, actually
present.
present to have the quality or depth of relationships.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it was quite hard, I guess. I felt a little ostracized at the start because it is such a big thing in our culture over here. But, most of my friends that still drink now, my husband still drinks. I mean, everyone just knows that I don't drink now. So it's kind of just become what everyone realizes is normal. It took a little bit of an adjustment period, but I've never been a really social person anyway. I don't go out a lot or go out to dinners a lot. So I did probably find it a little easier than someone, who's going to lots of parties or lots of events. Say another thing actually that really helped was very early on in my sobriety this year when I decided enough's enough. I actually took myself on a holiday by myself to Bali. Thank you to my husband for looking after our son. I went on
Love
I went on a surf and
Bali. Oh my gosh.
it
Yes, tell
was
me.
amazing. I went on a surf yoga trip by myself. I didn't know anyone. I made some friends over there that I still talk to now. And funnily enough, actually didn't drink as well. So I had in my head, like, everyone just drinks everywhere. And I went over to
Right.
Bali and I made a friend who was in her 20s and she just didn't drink either. And I just had such a great time. And it was exactly the holiday that I thought, where I got to the end and thought I could just easily stay here and go home. Yeah. Obviously, I wanted to go home
I
and see
felt
my
the same way.
family, but
Yeah.
runs.
Husband and kid, what? No. I
Abilities,
felt
what?
the same way. Bali
Yeah.
will do that to
Yeah.
anyone, okay? Like, it will
Yeah.
suck you in. Is
Yeah.
that place is just, like,
Amazing.
otherworldly.
Yeah.
I love that you did that. Like, first of all, like, not everyone loves to solo travel. So I do, and I
Mhm.
find that, like, when you take those moments, similar to, like, what you shared earlier around, like, when you had that in between time in your life where you were single and you really found your passions and your interests and, like, prioritized and chased that. I think the same thing about taking moments to explore the world. So, like, getting outside of your comfort zone and pushing yourself without the aid of any
Yeah.
substances to really, like, figure things out, and I just feel like that's such a beautiful thing, and, like, I did the same thing early in my sobriety. I took a trip.
Yeah.
I didn't go to Bali, I went to, like, Morocco and Spain
Yeah.
and Portugal, and it was exactly what my soul
Yeah.
needed. Like, it fed my soul. I wasn't sure I could,
Mhm.
like, have fun or travel or
Yeah.
do these things without alcohol,
Yeah.
but it was just so beautiful to be somewhere else outside of
Mhm.
my, like, daily routine
Yes.
to really rediscover parts of who I am and, like, what I enjoy.
Mhm.
So I resonate
I love
so
that.
much with what you just
Yeah.
shared.
Yeah.
I also think you're a pioneer. You may not realize it right now. Or actually, let me ask you, have any of your, like, people in your circle, inner or, like, outer circle, reached out to you about what it's been like to not drink or be sober in this time? Has anyone been like, "Oh, Ash, like, I'm thinking about maybe doing this as well?"
Yeah, I have. I've had quite a few people, especially since I started posting on Instagram about it, people that followed me that I knew from beforehand, just
Mhm.
from circles that have reached out since and said, "Oh, how did you do it? What have you found that it's like?" So even if, they're not quite ready now, I think it's important to talk about it because some people never get there, but everyone needs to take their own time with this kind of journey. And I think as long as, you're there to talk to people about it, then it's a great thing that you can do for people is just share your journey and then hopefully it resonates with somebody and helps them as well.
I agree. I think most people, to your point, it's like incremental progress. Like,
Yes.
people hear signs or, like, receive things
Mhm.
when they're meant to receive them and then
Mhm.
make the choice. Like, you mentioned, like, 2 years prior, you had thought about, "Okay, I wanna cut back on my
Mhm.
drinking," but it took 2 years for you to
Mhm.
actually decide, "I don't wanna drink anymore,"
Yeah.
myself included. There were many moments in life where I was like, "I probably should stop drinking,"
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. So you have to be ready,
Yes.
and you can be a part of that process simply by, to your point, having a conversation with someone and just sharing, like,
Mhm.
honestly, what it's been like. But I think sometimes when people know people, like, they see you
Mhm.
sharing your story out loud, it gives them courage
Mhm.
to also admit to themselves that maybe, just maybe, I could do the same thing.
Yes.
Maybe, just maybe, if Ash, if they see similar, like,
Mhm.
parts of their story in yours,
Mhm.
or your patterns in yours, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
everyone needs to, like, feel like there's some sort of representation
Definitely.
that gives them hope
Yeah,
to, like, take that leap of faith.
I agree. And I think there's almost a stigma attached around sobriety that if you admit that you're sober, then you were an alcoholic. And it's like,
Yeah,
not
so
necessarily
silly.
one, you never need to label yourself as anything you don't want to label yourself as.
Right.
But I think, you don't need to feel like you have a problem in other people's eyes to want to stop something that's just not serving you. Especially with somebody
Yeah.
like me who it really impacted the way I was feeling about myself and it really impacted my eating habits, then sobriety just makes so much sense. It was almost like the core habit that undid all of my other good habits. And when I got rid
Ooh,
of that, the core of the problem, it was like everything else started to fall into place.
let's talk a little bit more about that because you mentioned the food noise
Mm,
before.
yeah.
For folks who may not know what that is,
Mhm.
talk to us a little bit about the food noise. I think I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about, but I wanna make sure
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
speaking the same language.
So when I talk
Yeah.
food noise, I feel like it's quite common for a lot of women and we don't really talk about it, but especially when you've been through a period where you're chronically dieting, you are always thinking about food. Like from the minute you wake
Ah,
up to the minute you go to sleep, you are thinking about food. If you're not currently eating it, you're thinking about what you're going to have for your next meal. And it is just
mhm.
nonstop. I had to let go of a lot of the guilt that I felt around that because I used to think I was broken. And I started to realize this is a very natural thing that happens when you are chronically under eating is your brain is
Yeah,
wired
yeah.
to be seeking out and thinking about food because you're not giving yourself enough. And it's like, when you hold your breath for long enough, eventually you're going to have this big gulp of air. And the exact same thing happens with food. So
Mhm.
when you aren't fueling your body, you've got the food noise where it's just constant and it feels like it doesn't stop. And for me, the alcohol really fueled not so much the food noise, but the acting on the food noise. And I think I realized two things at the same time as one, I'm not eating enough. And two, the alcohol is making me then binge eat. I took it
Yeah.
away and I started just to eat regularly, like normal meals, 3 times a day with a snack that I had never done in my life because I would always not eat anything until lunchtime. I would maybe live off a coffee. I would get to the afternoon, have a very small meal, then drink wine, and then just eat until I went to sleep. And
Yeah.
yeah, taking away the alcohol
Yeah.
and really fixing the daily habits that I had around food really just made such a big difference.
Yeah, alcohol can be the root issue that is a catalyst
Yeah.
to creating more chaos in your life,
Yes.
and I didn't realize as well how much of my drinking was tethered to my disordered eating as well,
Mhm.
because as mentioned before, just like the
Yeah.
drunkorexia and then the overcompensating, restricting, it was just a perpetual cycle that was exhausting to be in.
Yeah.
But the food noise is the mental gymnastics of you consistently wearing yourself out,
Mhm.
to your point, thinking, obsessing
Yes.
about food, whether you're eating it or you're not.
Yes.
It's just like, yeah, that's a very
Mhm.
visceral memory I have, or memories I have of like
Mhm.
waking up literally like, can't wait to eat,
Mhm.
but delaying the
Yes.
gratification,
Mhm.
like a reward system of
Yeah.
sorts. Food,
Yeah.
food I'm referring
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
here. Like, oh, I can't wait to eat in 7 hours at 1 PM. It's
It's
like insane
crazy.
to think like
Yeah.
that's how I live my life.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, to your point, now I'm completely like, I get wasted faster, or like, no, you didn't say that. That's my point.
Yes.
I would drink and then
Mhm.
feel it immediately.
Mhm.
And then like, yeah, now I'm famished.
Mhm.
I want to ravish everything in sight. I have no boundaries.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, it impacts your self-esteem
Yes.
the next day and the next
Yeah.
day, and then you're just constantly in this
Mhm.
loop.
Mhm.
It's so freeing to, like, not be in that cycle
Yeah.
anymore, and it's so beautiful that you meant like, you recognize, because sometimes people don't recognize what the root cause is, and it's not always alcohol, but, like, the
Yeah.
fact that you were able to, like, pinpoint
Mhm.
that is
Mhm.
major. I would love to learn from you too, Ash, like, so for people who are maybe not in that, like, same cycle that we described,
Mhm.
like, they're not necessarily experiencing food noise
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
disordered eating
Mhm.
or body dysmorphia like I did. If they just are on a
Yeah.
wellness journey and they truly want to optimize and become the best version
Mhm.
of themselves, but they like to drink.
Yeah.
They like to have
Yeah.
a couple of glasses of wine a night.
Yeah.
What a dilemma. What do we do here? Like, what would
No,
you recommend
it is hard. Yeah.
in that situation?
Well, that is a hard one, I think. I guess my question to those people would be one, even if you enjoy having a drink, to have a think about when you are drinking, like the thoughts that you're having around it or the next morning. Because even if you do have a very normal relationship with food, you know, alcohol, and they say even one drink will still impact your sleep. It can still make you feel worse the next day. And I think it's just something to be mindful of is like, what is the reason that you are drinking for? And it's totally fine if you want to do it in a social occasion or like you feel like that's not something you want to give up. Because I think some people just do it, enjoy a drink. And I'm not here to push my beliefs about it onto anybody else by any means. But
Of course not. That's not
what
yeah.
I think is if you are having that thought of like maybe what could my life look like without it, just try it for 30 days or just try it for 60 days and just see how you feel because you might get to the end and think, you know what, I feel so much better. I don't even miss it. But if you don't give yourself that
Yeah,
opportunity, like you can always go back to drinking after if you decide, you know what, it was good, but I don't feel that much better, then you can always go back to it.
right.
But I think just giving yourself a period of time where, or a holiday, or just some period of time where you just don't have it and see how you feel, then you've got nothing to lose, really.
That is the perfect answer. I was thinking treat it like a social
Yeah.
experiment, because I think it can be overwhelming or daunting to be like, "I am never gonna drink again."
Mm.
Like, for
Yeah.
especially people who feel like they have a healthier
Yeah.
relationship with alcohol. I have my own opinions about what that
Yeah.
can mean, because I don't know how you can have a healthy
Yeah.
relationship with a toxic
I agree.
substance, but that's just me. But, like, that's not what I'm not judging,
Yeah.
guys, I'm not judging. I'm just saying that I think I would then add a little, like, seasoning on top of that and say, like, what are your priorities? Where do they lie? Because if you're telling me, you guys, if you're coming to
Mm.
Ash as a person, as a guiding light,
Mhm.
because she has completely transformed her body from the
Mhm.
inside out, and her relationship with food and just, like, all of the things that she's done, if you're going to an expert to ask them for their advice because you want to, quote, "prioritize your health," then I would just imagine that, like, the truth of the matter is if you can't give up
Mm.
alcohol for a period of time,
Yeah.
then you're not serious. It's not that much of a priority for you.
Yes.
Like, it's just a question of where your priorities lay,
Yeah,
in my
you
opinion.
hit the nail on the head because there's always, yes, you might want to have, you might want to look a certain way or you might want to have a certain goal. But if you can't give up alcohol or refuse to, then that is where your priority lies. And unfortunately, like there's no two ways about it. Yeah, people might want to
It's like
hear it. And
you are never gonna optimize to the like the you're never gonna optimize to your very
exactly.
best, highest
Right.
self. So it's like, cool, if you're cool with that, if that's what you want, then
Yeah.
cool. But if you're really like trying to like become, I think, the best version of
Yeah.
yourself, like I just don't see how
Yes.
alcohol fits into
Yeah,
that
it
equation.
is a huge thing to consider because I get so many DMs from people that are like, "Oh, what's your exact workout split?" or "What exactly do you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?" And it's like you can nitpick at all of these little things, but unless you're willing to get rid of the major stresses in your life, you're not going to see the big results that you want to see. And
Yeah,
it's just a little bit of tough love there, but some people do need to hear it, I think.
you heard it here, guys.
All
This is
right,
a
you're gonna
sign that
hate
you
me.
this is the message you had to hear. Yes, don't kill the messengers. Don't kill the messengers. A question. You said the word stressors, and so I don't want to just pick on alcohol,
Mm,
okay? Because people are
yes.
sensitive about their precious alcohol. What other stressors do you think people within the realm of our
Mhm.
control? Because this is the 21st
Mhm.
century, and like there's microplastics everywhere,
Yeah.
especially in America. We have like the worst
Yes.
diet and like all the things. But yeah, what other stresses do you think that are within our control that we can minimize to maximize the quality of our life or our lives?
Yeah. I mean, I think there are so many, and this is why I love biohacking and wellness and habits and all of these things. But there are some very simple things that we can do that a lot of people don't do that really add up throughout the day. Things like getting sunlight within the first hour of when you wake up. It sounds silly to some people and it sounds a bit wishy-washy, but it really sets up your circadian rhythm for your sleep for that
Mhm.
night. And most people don't do it. Most people don't just step outside and get a little bit of sunlight or things like putting a phone. And I have been guilty of
Ash, I gotta
recently.
say, not everyone lives on the Sunshine
Yes.
Coast. Going outside because
Yeah.
it's
Even
miserable
if
in the
there's no
Northeast
sun,
here in the
there's
United
actually
States.
studies that show
Okay,
that
just get
even
outside.
if there is
Okay.
no sun, then still getting outside in the miserable New York weather more beneficial.
Show off.
Yes.
It's like, yes, just get
I know it's like easy for me to say sitting here on the Sunshine Coast beach, like just get
what's the problem? You look kind of pale over there. What's going on?
right,
Um,
just get outside.
yes. I do understand though, like there is something to be said for
Yeah.
like immediately like not like
Yes.
defaulting to like let me check my
Yes.
my blue light phone, like the
Huge
screen, like
one.
tired.
Because I mean, before I started on my Instagram journey, I guess, which started middle of this year, I never really was on my phone. I wouldn't touch it in the mornings and I didn't touch it in the evenings. And I will admit that is something I'm working on now because since I started posting, I'm very all or nothing. So I'm also a
Mhm.
perfectionist where I'm like I have to reply to every comment, every DM. Like I am constantly thinking about tasks that need to be done. And so I've been reaching for my phone
Mhm.
earlier in the mornings and later at night. And I have noticed a huge impact on my sleep and just my general
Ah,
stress levels. I feel are raised. So I've actually got an app now that will lock me out until a certain
oh, that's
time
good.
and at a certain time of the evening so that I'm just putting it away, being present with my family. And I've definitely noticed an improvement almost immediately in my sleep. So, yeah, blue light is such a huge thing.
It is it is I would love to pretend that I am good about it, but I'm not
Mhm.
either. I used to be better about it, but I think it's just become, unfortunately, a part of my routine.
Yes.
And so now I'm mindlessly it's not even like I can't pretend that I'm always, like, being productive. Of course, I do work things,
Yeah.
but I'm more so just mindlessly, like,
Yeah.
scrolling in the name of, like, doing
Yeah.
research or looking for inspiration.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, like, time would better be spent in bed
Yes.
reading or
Yeah.
journaling or just doing something that doesn't involve being on my phone, and I have noticed that, like, I don't know if you get your,
Yeah.
like, weekly reports on your phone where it's like, "You've spent X amount of
Oh
time
God, I don't
on
even
this
want to
app."
know.
That number has, like It's climbing.
Yeah.
It's getting higher and higher.
I
So
don't check
maybe
my
focus. Also, you have your growth strategy. I need you to email it to me immediately. You've blown off the chart. The fact that you just started your Instagram this year
Yeah.
and in the middle of this year, and you have 80,000 plus followers, Ash.
Yeah.
But you know what it is? You offer real value. Like your post, they feel like they're actionable things that people can apply
Yeah.
to their
Yeah.
lives. It's not like, oh, a day in my life, and it's all of these things are not
Yeah.
within the normal person's reach. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I would love to get a lymphatic
Yeah.
massage 3 times a week or whatever. Like that's not gonna happen. I'd love to be in the sauna,
Yeah. Yeah.
2 hours every day. But like you do things that I think most people can actually like try
Yes.
to like
Important.
implement in their lives if they're serious about it. So yeah, talk to us. So like getting sunlight. Sorry, we got a little
Yeah.
off track.
No,
That's
that's
my fault.
great.
I'm the ADD one
Yeah.
over here. So sunlight,
Yeah.
exposure to the sunlight, less blue light.
So
What would you say are like your top 3
top
tips like that you would
3
give?
tips would be I feel like everything starts with your morning routine. So if you can
Mm,
nail your morning routine, like it is so much easier to stay on track for the rest of the day. I
yeah.
try and get in, I mean, you have to work things into where they fit for you. Like I'm a mum and I've always worked during the day. So for me, and I know like people just think it's crazy sometimes that I go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night and I wake up at 4 a.m. and I train before my son gets up. And, there's a lot online about no, you shouldn't train fasted and all of that. And yes, I get that. But like, I just know for me, if I don't get out of bed and like roll onto my Pilates mat, it's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
me, it works first thing in the morning. But I think if you can just get some sort of morning routine that doesn't make you feel so frazzled, like whether it's 10 minutes of movement, can you go for a walk with the dogs if you don't have kids, or if you've got kids, can you
Mhm,
put them in the pram or take them with you and really focus
mhm.
on a nourishing breakfast that has protein, fats, and carbs and fiber? Then
Protein,
protein,
carbs,
fats,
and
carbs, and
fiber. Okay.
fiber, 30 grams of protein. I know that's like the magic number that everyone says, and I really believe in it. I think protein is,
30 grams.
but if you can nail your breakfast and your morning routine, it will make everything so much easier.
Okay. Dumb question coming. Get ready.
Yes.
Can you just quantify? Like 30 grams means I don't count macros. That means nothing to me. I do have a scale, but like what does that look like? Is that 2 hard boiled eggs? Is it like what if you had to like put that in like your ideal
Yeah.
breakfast, give it to
Well,
us. Like what would you say is like
yeah.
the the breakfast that is like the
Yeah.
majors out of your breakfast,
Well, see,
you
I
know?
say 30 grams of protein, but funnily enough, I don't actually count calories or track or weigh my food or track macros. So it's like an idea in my head.
There we go.
So,
I'm language now. I don't wanna do
no,
any of that. I don't wanna
I'm
count
not
or
getting stale
weigh or
out.
anything.
Like it's just not happening. But for me, breakfast most days looks like I will often, this is like my go to breakfast. And it is actually, I had posted this very early on in my Instagram journey and it kind of just went semi viral at the time. Like everyone was
Mhm.
like, wow, this breakfast. And I just remember thinking this video is so mediocre. Like, doesn't even look great.
This is basic. I do this
So
every day.
basic.
Like, really?
But I'll have sauteed cabbage with
Okay.
sweet potato. I have
Love that.
like 2 eggs and then just a meat patty and avocado, like a
Okay.
half avocado. And I put
I love
that hot,
avocado.
what is it? Hot honey, like chili honey.
Yeah. Oh, I love
I
hot honey.
have
Yes,
it
I do.
on every,
The Mike's hot honey?
yes,
Yeah,
it is so good.
I
I
love it.
have it on every single meal, like pretty much without fail.
Ooh.
So that's a breakfast that I generally will have most days. I might swap out the meats. I know a lot of people prefer a sweet breakfast. You could always have,
But then the issue, I have a major sweet
yeah,
tooth, but like when I start the day, which I don't, I'm gonna be honest, like
right.
I don't eat
Yeah.
breakfast very often. I need to stop that. But like, so we all break fast. I break fast around like 11 or 12 o'clock. But anyway, back to
Mhm.
breakfast. Or I think like if I do eat my first thing is
Yeah.
sweet, then it sets the tone for the rest of the
Yes.
day. So if I reach for like a muffin
Mhm.
or like something that I shouldn't
Yeah.
be eating or even carbs, like I just feel like my diet for the rest of the day is never going to make up because I tell myself in that moment like, "Oh, the fallacies, the lies we tell ourselves." Like, oh, it's better to eat this, like, not so great thing first thing in the morning because then they have more time to burn it off throughout
Yeah.
the day, but really what it does is it sets the tone for my day because now I'm just going to be like, I already have that, like, sugar spike in my blood or whatever it may be,
Yes,
and
it's
so
actually a
yeah.
physiological response when you start your day with carbs and no protein, fats, or fiber that slow down the release of those carbs. Your insulin levels are just going up and down. And that's why you get cravings later on,
Mm,
because your insulin is spiking and dropping and spiking and dropping rather than staying steady when you include protein and fats to slow down the release of the carbs, which I always used to love sweet breakfast too. And it took me a little while to switch over to savory, but I guarantee if you're a sweet breakfast person and you're not having any protein or fats with it, just try it. See how you go. And you can have your
okay.
sweets afterwards, because I do that. Like, I love sweets. I have a sweet tooth. I have something sweet every
Mm,
single day without fail. I still eat chocolate.
me too.
Like, I love it. But I'll have it after I have my meal or in the afternoon. Like,
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna try that, and so should I eat breakfast too?
yeah. See,
Earlier?
that was going to be
Yeah.
my other number one thing aside from cutting out alcohol. If you're on a wellness journey, is eating breakfast earlier and finishing dinner earlier. And by finishing dinner
1 out of
earlier,
3.
I mean, people freak out because I eat my dinner at 4 p.m., but it's only because I go to bed so early. So I like to leave
Okay,
my I call it a rule, but it's not a rule. Like, if I'm with family and we're eating dinner later, of course I'm going to eat later. I'm not one of those people that's like, no,
right.
past 4 p.m., I can't eat now. But
But just watch everyone at your table eat but me. Yeah.
But if you can finish eating a meal and then leave 3 hours before you go to sleep, your sleep will dramatically improve. It'll be easier to lose fat if that is one of your goals. And it is just so much better for you. So I know a lot of people like to do intermittent fasting where they start eating at lunchtime and then eat till later. But
Yeah, that's what I do.
science has showed that it is better to do it the other way around. It's just obviously more difficult because it's less social. And it depends what time you go to bed.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know.
Mm.
Speaking of bed, sleep,
Mm.
I'm assuming, key that you mentioned is, like, a 3-hour I think I saw this on your Instagram,
Yeah.
like, don't eat 3 hours before bed, ideally.
Yes, ideally.
Okay. So, those are great tips. You heard it here first. Ash is recommending, number 1, to let me see, this is my test, okay? Number 1, sunlight. If you can get outside, or better yet, if you can fly to the Sunshine Coast and just live there. No, but, first thing in the morning, get the movement in, basically perfect your morning routine. That's
Yeah.
the first rule.
Mhm.
Perfect your morning routine to the best of your ability, optimize, and get the harder things out the way
Mhm.
so that you're not delaying.
Yeah.
Then number 2 would be to make sure that you eat a high protein
Mhm.
breakfast. The sweet spot is 30, but we're gonna steal your perfect
Mhm.
breakfast.
Mhm.
So, that's rule number 2, and then rule number 3 would be to make sure that you I forgot the 3rd rule, Ash. Oh
What's
my
it,
gosh.
guys? Try and leave at least 3 hours between your lunch
Before bed.
food and bed.
Okay, that makes sense. Those are great. And drink water. Hey, butterflies, let me let you in on a little secret. Self care is so much more than just bubble baths. It's about finding what makes you feel your very best, inside and out. And that's why I've been obsessed with ClassPass for years. Whether I'm crushing a Pilates class, getting a fresh blowout, or treating myself to a relaxing facial, ClassPass lets me explore all kinds of fitness and wellness options. With just one membership, I can book workouts, beauty treatments, and so much more all in one app. I've been a member since 2016, and I've booked over 500 reservations. ClassPass makes it easy and fun to prioritize my health and happiness, all while staying on budget. And because I want you to feel just as amazing as I do, I've got an exclusive offer for my listeners. Sign up with my special link and you'll get a free trial and 20 bonus credits to use toward any classes or services you want to try. So, what are you waiting for? Take that first step toward feeling your best. Head to ClassPass to get started today. So, welcome back. We are winding down. I've stolen a lot of Ash's time, but she's shared so many gems with us today. So let's wind down with a quick glow up rapid fire game.
Mhm.
So I don't want you to overthink it.
Okay.
Rapid fire, whatever comes to mind, spit it out.
Mhm.
Are you down to play, Ash?
I am. Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's this glow up rapid fire. Okay.
Yeah.
What is your current go to post workout snack?
Ooh. Do you know what? I actually don't have a post-workout snack, only because I work out at like 4 a.m. and I don't start eating
Oh,
my day eating until 7 a.m. So
okay. That makes sense. So it's
really,
breakfast,
I
basically.
feel
It's
like
the breakfast that you shared.
people are gonna come at me, but that's my answer.
Thank you for being honest. It
Um,
works. I think that's another thing. There's no like ideal for everyone.
no,
You have to
everyone's
do what works
different.
for you.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
So yeah, breakfast is your post-workout snack,
It
and
is.
it
Yeah,
sounds delicious.
yeah.
Next question. What do you think the most underrated wellness hack is? I feel like I know what you're gonna say, but the most underrated wellness hack.
Oh my gosh. Do you know what I'm gonna say? I'm interested to see what you think I was gonna say.
I thought okay, do you want me to tell you what I thought
Yeah.
you were gonna say?
Tell me what you
I
thought.
think the most underrated, in your opinion, would be a couple of things.
Yeah.
Quitting alcohol.
Uh-huh.
Like, and then the other thing, the bed thing, the one that I really think that the 3 hours before
Yes.
bed, because it helps your quality of sleep, which also helps with digestion and all the things, and helps you then feel
Yes.
well rested enough to start your day with your set routine and like a good routine. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's I'm speculating. I have no
You
idea.
really hit the nail on the head, but I actually have another one that kind of goes
Oh,
with 3 hour one. But it's like this is something that I do with my husband and son every night, and it is the best. So after dinner, we go for like a 15-20 minute walk just around the block. It is something, especially if you struggle with like nighttime eating. It's like a way
mm,
I brush my teeth before so as soon as I have dinner, I brush my teeth and then we put on our shoes, we go
smart.
for a walk. It is amazing again for your circadian rhythm and it helps your food digest. And it's like kitchen's closed. Like it's also a nice way to bond because you're not sitting there on your phone. You're actually chatting and talking about your day. So again, I know
I
if
love
you're
that.
in an area like New York, this may not be as easy. Maybe you could get a walking
But we
path.
have to walk. That's all we do here is we walk. That's a good one. No,
Right.
that's really I can
Most people
implement that.
will. Yes.
That's a really good one because I do for people who struggle with e snacking
Mhm.
too late or, like, the mindlessness of just eating because you're
Yes.
watching something or, like, doing something, it, like, resets the routine, like, it's like, "Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get up and go outside." You're moving, and
Yes.
it's sort of like you distract yourself for yourself, like, from your old
Yeah, it
routines.
is. I
It's brilliant.
actually implemented it originally when I was quitting alcohol because it replaced the wine,
Yeah,
it's
that
my
ritual.
look, and it was like my relax time. So
That's
definitely my favorite.
brilliant. Okay, I love that one. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. We'll
Yes.
see. What would you say? A couple more questions for you.
Living.
Glowing up with Ash. What would you say is at this time your favorite alcohol-free drink?
Oh, I love, okay, I've got a couple, either coconut water with a bit of salt in it because it's so
Ooh.
yummy and it's good for electrolytes. Or if it's like in the afternoon and I feel like something special, I'll have soda water with a little bit of lime and just a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And it's just really good for your
Ooh.
gut health as well. And it's like fizzy and it's got like a little bit of something in there. So it makes you feel like you're having a treat, but it's also really good for you and it's got no sugar.
The way you just elevate everything that you do, seriously, because
Sure.
you said coconut water. I'm like, yeah, coconut water. You're like, of course. And then you said, oh, but then I sprinkle a little salt in there for the electrolytes. And I'm like, I was like, oh, sparkling water, been there, done that. You said, no, I add a little apple cider vinegar. This is amazing,
Well,
Ash.
it's like
Okay,
a little
gotta
ritual
try
of
all of
it.
these
It
things.
makes it so much better. You gotta have a little
I'm gonna try all of these things, like, seriously,
yeah.
because, like, I'm over the phase where when I first quit drinking, I had a bunch of sugar cravings because no
Mhm.
my when you drink
Yes.
alcohol, it,
Yes,
turns
very
into
normal.
sugar.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was having all these cravings and, like, eating not so well, and
Mhm.
then I also found myself, like, really getting into, like, the non-alc scene, like, drinking non-alcoholic wines and, like, basically things fueled
Mhm.
full of sugar, and so now I'm, like, I don't want this. Like, why am I drinking this? So I like that you gave like options that are actually good for you. This is going to replenish something. It's aid your body with
Yeah.
something. Okay, trying all of those things.
Another
Love
one
that so
I have
much.
is if you're
Yeah,
having
you have another one?
if you're having sugar cravings, electrolytes will really help with that. So if you feel like you're
Okay, good to
constantly
know.
craving sugar, it's often a mineral imbalance. So maybe try some
Oh,
electrolytes or try some mineral water and see how you go.
okay. Coming in with
I've got all
all the hot tips. Okay. No, seriously, like this is something that so many people like struggle with. And
yeah.
like for me, not to make this about me, especially as we're winding down, it's gonna be another 2 hour conversation, guys. No, but like at the end of my drinking, beginning of my sober journey, I gained maybe like 15 pounds. I was
Yeah.
consuming tons of sugar and eating. And it was so triggering for me because, as mentioned, I've
Yeah.
struggled with disordered eating and body dysmorphia that it almost caused a relapse. So this is real for people. Like
Yeah, very.
the I think also people just assume when you quit drinking you lose weight, which that also happens, and it balanced out once I like figured out my life again. For those who don't get that result, it can be like really,
Yeah.
overwhelming. This is a great way to like deflect or like try to avoid that pitfall of over consuming sugar to
Yeah.
compensate for the lack of alcohol or whatever. So I love that so much. Electrolytes noted.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question for you. What's one thing that you are transforming internally right now?
Internally, well, I feel like I'm quite as much as I get told a lot of the time that I seem like a calm person, and I feel like I am most of the time, but I can also go from 0 to 100, like, stress-wise, and I can be really
I
hard
love
on
it.
myself, and
Yeah,
I'm a real perfectionist, so, like, everything has to be perfect, which I think a lot of women can relate to. So, I am
1,000.
working on just, like, chilling out a little bit more and being okay with things not being perfect and not being okay. So
Do you have any Virgo in your chart?
I don't know. I'm a Scorpio. Just
You're Scorpio. Okay. Is your birthday recent?
yeah,
Yes.
30th of October.
Happy belated. That's a cool birthday. Right before
Yeah,
I
before
say
Halloween.
Thanksgiving. I'm sorry. Right before Halloween. That's
Yeah.
so fun. Okay. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
The perfectionist thing is real, to
Yeah.
your point, women, but, like, every Virgo I know is, like, hands down the most thorough type A person that I've ever met in my
Mhm.
life, and when you said 0 to 100, I thought for a second, I was like, "She might be a fire sign, like an Aries." I'm an Aries, so I'm like, we go 0 to 100 very quickly, but then we'll flame out quickly.
Yeah.
So but it sounds like you're hard on yourself, like, you're
Yeah.
hypercritical of yourself,
Very,
and
yeah.
then that anxiety
Yeah.
triggered.
Yes, and I think, that's something that it comes from childhood really, and, I can recognize certain things about my childhood and relationship with my parents, and that's something that has instilled certain beliefs and limiting beliefs, so that is something and I actually had a coach help me through this as well this year, is working on limiting beliefs and the way that you speak to yourself.
Mm,
So,
mm.
I think it's just so important because, some of the things that we say to ourselves, we wouldn't say to anyone else. They would be awful, but we
Absolutely not.
say it to ourselves. And, the relationship that we have with ourselves is the most important one that we have.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, and I think getting sober helps with that so much because A, we do hard things. It's hard to get sober, whether you have a drinking problem or not, like, to make a different choice for yourself, especially against societal norms, that's a
Mhm.
big deal, and then also, you start to believe in yourself. "Well, if I'm capable of doing this, look how much better I feel
Yeah.
in all these areas of my life,"
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that natural progression, I think, helps build the self-confidence. But the way you speak to yourself discerns between someone who is able to actually, like, go after it and get it and achieve their dreams and sustain that, as opposed to someone who is doing it to disprove the negative talk that they
Yes.
tell themselves, and then they may reach that level of success, but they're actually not able to enjoy it because they don't think they deserve it. They don't love themselves enough to, like,
Exactly.
give themselves the positive, like, feedback that they need to
Yes.
hear and support themselves through that process because life is hard and it's not easy, and this is everyone's first time on this
Mhm.
journey of life, so be kind to yourself. That's what I try to tell myself is just be
Yeah,
kind,
and
but
it's
it's
so
so hard
much
to do that.
easier said than done. Like, you really have to catch yourself. Something you really need to be aware of.
It's an unlearning process, and
It
it's
is.
really hard, but with time and practice, it becomes possible. I love everything you've shared, Ash, today, and I really wanna thank you for coming on the show,
Thank
and I'm so
you.
inspired by you. You've given me, like, real tips. I'm so serious. I'm adding salt to my coconut water,
Right.
like, I'm doing the things.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try my best to eat breakfast. I know that's a big one
Yeah.
too. I feel very much inspired about learning about your journey, and I'm so proud of you for doing what's best for you
Yeah.
and making that choice, and community is huge, and I feel
Mhm.
like you've mentioned before, like, you found that through the program you did, and that's
Mhm.
great, but, like, I know how hard it can be to feel like you're in an ecosystem
Mhm.
that is catered to drinking,
Mm.
and it takes a strong-willed person to go on that journey, so I commend you on your strength, but
Thank
also community doesn't have to necessarily be in person, so, keep telling your story on Instagram and on social platforms because so many people are similar to you in
you.
places where they may feel like there's no one out there who understands or there's no one out there that, you know, is making a different choice for themselves, or like maybe they'll hear something unique about your story that lights a fire inside of them to say, "Hi, I'm not an alcoholic. I was kind of like how she said, like I
Mhm.
was kind of just drinking wine mindlessly or
Yeah.
giving myself an excuse to have a glass of wine extra because I had a
Mhm.
bad day." So I think that plus you living your life out loud and showing how your life can drastically improve. It's not always perfect, but like
Yeah.
showing the transformation from within,
Mhm.
it really will help someone. So thank you for sharing. It's helped me just even hearing parts of your story.
No,
And I
thank
hope
you.
that you continue telling it because you have a voice and, people need to hear it. They really do. And it's not like we're indebted to it, but I'm telling you, like, community is real. And I found community on Instagram, and
Yeah.
you can be a part of my community. I would love to be a part
Yeah.
of your community.
Yeah.
Part of it, and like
Really
come to New York. I'm coming to Australia one day. Like I'm so serious. Like I will pull
Yeah.
up
I love
to the
that.
Sunshine Coast.
You'll love it here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ash, for coming on. How can people connect with you? How can they find you?
I'm on Instagram. Ash Meredith 11 is my handle. And, if you want to go that step further, I do run a glow up challenge that we've just done, but it is ongoing. And it's a 4-week challenge, and I will have more throughout next year. But it's not one of those, fitness challenges where it's like, okay, 4 weeks to lose this amount of weight, because that's just not
Right.
sustainable. So, yes, it's a workout plan. I've got meals in there as well, but it's more centered around habits and using the 4 weeks to build sustainable habits that you can carry on afterwards, and just keep those ongoing throughout your life, because, there's no point doing anything just for 4 weeks. You really want to build a life that you can sustain and that makes you feel good. So, yeah.
I love that there's no specific metric that's attached to it
Mhm.
because I think either that can motivate people to like go super hard and achieve whatever that like arbitrary
Mhm.
number is or that goal is, but
Mhm.
then that's not sustainable because they
Yeah.
just like try to like reach this one like level. Or you have people who are just like, I can't do that. Like this is
Mhm.
just too hard. And then they quit
Yeah.
before they even really start. So I love that you're like individually like allowing people to just undergo changing the habits because that's what's really going to drive the success long term.
It is,
Um,
because you think it's motivation and it's willpower, but if you can set your day up so that these things, these healthy habits are just habits, that it's almost on autopilot, it becomes so much easier to focus on your wellness because you're not thinking about it all the
yeah.
time.
Well, habits shape us, right? No, I think like they say something like habits becoming your identity. I'm
Yes.
not going to massacre this thing here. Thank you so much, Josh, for coming on the Sober by the
Yeah.
Fly. I'm going to plug your Instagram and how folks can sign up potentially for when's the next challenge? When's your
The
next
next one
30-day
will
challenge?
start at the start of January.
Perfect. January, everyone wants to, that's when the motivation is high.
Yeah, I'm
Everyone
staying.
wants to
I
transfer
know.
their vibes. Try January. So like that's perfect. I'll plug that. Please sign up, guys, if you do want to change
Yeah.
yourself from the inside out. And it sounds like not just changing yourself from the inside out, but sustaining that
Yeah.
because like that change needs to be lasting.
Yes.
And it starts with you. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.